Jai Prabhuji. Hello everybody and welcome to our course of the book of Prabhuji, Kundalini Yoga, The Power is in You. This is the book in physical, as you know and I've mentioned in all of our classes. This is the foundation for everything that we're sharing during the whole course in regards to this path. Today we are having our last class about the second center, which is the Svadhisthana chakra, the second center or sacral chakra. So for whoever doesn't have the book, it's very recommended to get it. If you do have the book, you probably notice how we are sometimes developing our class. I am sharing my thoughts in regards to different topics that are shared in the book. We're taking different sentences, we're taking different paragraphs, and we are building a whole class from something very small. So for the ones that didn't have the chance yet to have this experience, then it's very recommended to get the book. As I mentioned in previous classes, it's going to be one of those books that you can consider them a life companion. You're going to be able to deepen in your understanding and keep exploring in regards to this beautiful path. So it's very recommended to get it. Today we are going to have a brief summary of all the properties, all the attributes, and different terms that we've been sharing that are related to this specific center. And we are going to also share how does it looks when this center is in balance and how does it looks when the center is balanced. We are then going to finalize by sharing the practice to open this center and also different postures that we can practice, that we can add to our practice of Hatha Yoga. When we want to fortify, when we want to open and connect with the Svadhisthana chakra. We started this series of classes speaking about desire and pleasure. We saw how this center is so connected to these two specific qualities, these two specific properties. And we also had our second class where we shared also in regards to sexuality. Another terms that are used to relate to that are associated with the Svadhisthana chakra are passion and creativity. And for the ones that already saw our classes, you can already imagine and maybe understand why we can also use these terms to refer to this center. Starting by the desire and the pleasure, we spoke about the futility of this searching for pleasure, what's going to happen with our lives if we just fulfill, if we just allow ourselves to pursue pleasure. We saw also what are the different alternatives that the retroprogressive path is showing us, that the Kundalini path is suggesting us in regards to something so natural as it is the pleasure, the desire, and also the sexuality. When we had our class about the sexuality, we saw different views, different stance that we can take in regards to sex. The Puritan, the libertine, and the religious one. We saw how the Puritan is contracting you, is making you this obsessive and neurotic person. The libertine, which is usually the most common one, is the one where I just mentioned is permissive, and we allow ourselves to follow this natural, which is something that we learn, this natural force of the human beings, like the desire or this eternal quest that we have, this seeking for pleasure, this natural quest in the human being. We are naturally drawn to seek pleasure and to seek because we want this pleasure. Then we can also have it in a sense of sex, which is what we're speaking about. So then the last one was the religious one, which is the one of sublimation. So we saw these different views, and we saw, I wanted to mention now, how these things are natural, and when it comes in contact with the mind, as we saw in our class of sexuality, this is when the issues begin. Like there is kind of the many different disorders and diseases that are associated, like the addiction of sex, different addictions, not only to sex. We see that comes only when there is this contact with the mind, and we saw our class, we explained clear Prabhuji's view in regards to the topic of sex and how it's not actually an obstacle in our spiritual life, in our development, in our path to self-realization. So beginning by the fact that these are natural forces that are present in the human beings, and then there are different choices, different views, either the Puritan, which is making us neurotic, the libertine one, which is making us slaves of this thing that we're pursuing, and then we have the religious view, which is the one that relates to the different phenomena with a sublimation attitude. We spoke about renunciation too. Then we also share different properties that are related to this center. We went even more deep, speaking about the deities that are presiding this center. We saw how it's Vishnu, and we saw how it makes sense that it's Vishnu, as he's the one on this triad of the Hinduism. He's the one that preserves, and because this center is very related to sex, then there we do the connection. When we spoke also about the organs, we saw how it's the sexual glands, the ones that are going to be associated with the center. When we spoke about the sense that is related to the center, we spoke about the taste, the tongue, and we saw how the tongue is making this very important place when it's helping us to discriminate in our spiritual life what are the things that are harming us, or something that can actually help us to keep developing. And when we spoke also about the animal, which is the crocodile, that is also providing us this viveka, this discrimination, and it's telling us about the dangers of pursuing only pleasure, to associate and to relate to this center only with these attributes of pleasures and passion, sexuality, without actually relating to it inside this system of chakras, inside this path of the Kundalini Yoga, as we've been sharing. And today then we are having this opportunity where we are going to actually learn what are these dangers, how these dangers that we've been sharing along the way of this series of classes are going to express in ourselves. We saw from the classes of the first center, which I want to mention that if you didn't see them, it's important to see them. We have a very specific order, and even though there is a lot of content and a lot of value in each class, I think it's very important to listen to the previous ones, because it's providing you a base, a foundation, in order for you to understand even more the things that we're sharing in each class. So this is the last one of the second center. It's very recommended to listen to the first three that we share in regards to the center, and now I am referring to the one that we share in regards to the first center, where we saw that the imbalances of a center, of a chakra, can take two directions. One is when there is a deficit of the energy that is being metabolized by the center. The center is either blocked and sometimes closed, and the other direction is when it's overloaded, when the center is metabolizing energy in excess. So let's begin as we did with the first center. How does it look? How these imbalances are going to affect us in our health? And we're going to be comparing both. The common thing is to find people, to find friends and relatives that are usually in tune with their emotions. But sometimes there are certain exceptions to this so-called, we can call it, rule. Many times, if in our childhood we were encouraged or discouraged to show our emotions, then maybe there is certain blockage in this expression of our emotion. It can create certain disconnection, or even if we have a very overwhelmed parent that it was overly expressive, then maybe our reaction to it is to withdraw, and we don't want to show so much our emotions because we already have someone that is doing it in excess, and our reaction is to keep it to ourselves. So starting by this, that it's in our childhood, this can create this blockage of the second center because it's not allowing us to connect and to be open and to have a healthy relationship with the expressions of our emotions. Also, in our adulthood, maybe we had different situations that can cause the blockage temporarily or in a very long term, short term or even long term blockage. If we have a bad breakup in our relationship, and sometimes even if we lost a very loved person, this can also cause this blockage in the second center. In our health specifically, a second center that is blocked is going to be expressed many times as a disorder of sex arousal. The person is not going to have desire to have sex, and even it's going to avoid it. And of course, this is going to bring this disorder itself. It's going to bring many other symptoms that are going to affect the person physically and also emotionally. So other physical expressions of a block center are kidney stones, pain in the lower back, also different issues, different problems with the gallbladder. A woman that might be suffering from a blockage in the second center, it's going to have also skipped menstrual periods. Let's then speak about how it's going to express emotionally, psychologically, this blockage in our second center. So as we see, when it's related to blockage, it's many things that are more related to contracting and withdrawing. So someone that sometimes you call them cold. They consider yourself, or a friend maybe that you consider a cold person. It's someone that might be suffering from a blockage in the second center. Also, it's this type of people that only have very shallow relationships, it's very difficult for them to have an intimate relationship. If you are a parent with a blockage in the second center, you might be unwilling, or you cannot even create a healthy communications with your children, although this can also be a symptom of an overloaded center when it's expressed, when you're overly expressing yourself, and then you're causing your children to withdraw, and they are the ones that are avoiding the communication because it's too much emotion for them to handle. The other very famous symptom of this center when it's blocked is the emotional blockages, and the ones that we call the writer's block, because this center is so related to creativity. So then many times this is a symptom of when this center is blocked. And I also want to mention that many of us sometimes is going to consider, oh, I am not a creative person, my creativity is very low. And what we're going to see, according to what we've been learning, is that it's not that you're lacking creativity. It might be a symptom of a blockage of the second center. So someone that is having issues in this expression of creativity can focus more in trying to balance the center than in doing something very specific in regards to the creativity, or just giving up. You can focus in doing different exercises related to this center, and then this creativity can return. Then we also have these different persons. I'm sure you've been in contact with someone that is expressing their emotions in excess. They call them a very sentimentalist person. This is a way to refer to this type of people. Sure, we have different situations in life where we have to bring different emotions and we need to express ourselves. When it's done in an exaggerated way, then we can say that maybe this person is suffering from an overloaded second center. If in the block center, the person in the different health symptoms, different health issues that are related to the second center, if in the blocked one, the person was having skipped menstrual periods, then in the overloaded, it's excessive flow of the menstrual fluids. Then if the other one had different disorders in regards to the arousal, in the sex arousal, this one is going to have excessive arousal, it wants sex. This is where the different addictions can come from. Also, the different symptoms of the PMS, the premenstrual syndromes, are very aggravated if the person is suffering from an overloaded chakra. We're going to see different disorders related to eating, even though eating is a very basic and an activity that is very connected to the first center. What we're going to see in this one, that this eating is more related to emotional eating. So obesity is going to be also a symptom of an overloaded second center, but when it's more related to this emotional eating, in order for us to remove certain painful emotions, we want to take and to eat food in excess in order for us to cover different painful emotions. if in the first center we did it because of this grounding and because we want to affirm the space that we occupy in the earth, and the bigger we are, then the more we are affirming our existence. In the second center is more a way to suppress different emotions. So then, for example, the bulimia is going to be one of the disorders related to an overloaded Svadhisthana chakra, because we are eating in excess out of trying to suppress certain emotions, and then we feel guilty about what we just done. So then we want to vomit all this food. So bulimia is very related to an overloaded Svadhisthana chakra. Then we have different addictions. This is going also to be part of the psychological ones, because we can have addiction not only to food, but it can be addiction to sex, addiction to different substances, to drugs, to alcohol. And it's because of this overloaded center. We saw in our first center that also an overloaded first center can lead to different addictions, but we can see how in this specific center, because of this search for pleasure, this quest for pleasure, then can turn into different addictions. So continue with the addictions. This is mainly the different psychological issues that are related to an overloaded Svadhisthana chakra. There are many different destructive behaviors that we can adopt when this center is overloaded, because of this relation that it has with the pleasure, with the seeking of pleasure. And we already spoke in our previous classes, how is it going to look and how is it going to affect your whole life when you are a slave or something. If you've been in contact with someone that is addicted to certain substances or even to sex, you can see how they live for it. This is the only thing that they think, and they actually live for it, pursuing this short-term pleasure, this short-term relief. Many people lose their jobs, they lose their family, they lose their health, just in order to pursue this addiction. They are a slave of something. So these are the dangers when this center is overloaded. And also, when we're speaking about the different emotions, if you find this person that is very clingy, this person that it's very attached, it's probably because this second center it's overloaded. There is these different disorders that are associated with this clinginess, like the codependency, and also the bipolar disorder. It's also related to this second center. And what we see in regards to this clinginess is that it ends usually by losing the person that you are attached, that you are codependent, because it's too much for the other person to handle. And maybe also you already know this, as I mentioned, this person that it's over sentimental, like everything is a drama, and it's very difficult, it's very toxic to be around someone that presents these different symptoms out of an overloaded second center. So how does it look when there is a balanced functioning of this chakra, which is what we are pursuing, what we really are interested in? We can anyways benefit by understanding the imbalances and identify these different imbalances in us and see how we can work with it in order to balance it. So when this center is open, we are going to experience vitality. There is also harmony in married life. We saw how when we have the different when we have the different influences of the water, like you're over sentimentalist, when now that we just spoke about the different imbalances, we saw how can this affect our married life. But when this center is in balance, then you are going to enjoy from harmony in married lives. There is also going to be physical stability. There is very deep communications with our surroundings, with our relatives. There is emotional tranquility. There is a healthy need for physical contact and caresses. If in the blocked one we had someone that didn't want any type of contact, that it's even avoiding sex, and in the overloaded we have someone with very high arousal, with even addiction to sex, then in this one there is just this very natural need for physical contact and for caresses. The person with an open second center has a joyful appearance, the liver is balanced, and also the gallbladder, and the temperature in the body is constant. A good functioning of this chakra is going to manifest as creativity. We spoke how the creativity is very related to the center. When it's overloaded, we see very creative person, but it's even harming them in some way. In this one, the creativity manifests in a balanced way. The person is very has enthusiasm in life, and there is also a great resilience because it's stimulating the nervous system. People whose Svadhisthana chakra is functioning in a balanced way will be sure of themselves. They have this confidence in themselves. They have healthy feelings of friendliness and fellowship. It's not as we saw this influence of the water, that when it's too much, when it's a negative influence, there is too much sentimentalism, but when it's positive, then as we just see here, it's very healthy feelings of friendshipness. And the person with a balanced center also is aware of the futility of accumulating possessions to attain bliss. I feel that this specific part is very important because we've been speaking so much about the pleasure, the seeking of pleasure, and to allow ourselves to blindly go after it. When the center is actually balanced, we know that it's futile to think that accumulating certain possessions can bring us bliss. We are aware, we are conscious that doesn't matter how much we accumulate, it doesn't matter how much we pursue certain thing in the exterior, something external, this is not going to give us the bliss that we are actually searching for. Now that we see how a balanced center looks, we can speak about the different techniques in order to open this center, and also the postures that are recommended for the balance of the center. And I also want to refer to the class that we share this information in regards to the first center, because we were able to receive, before sharing about this, what is the attitude in the retroprogressive yoga in regards to the sadhana. We spoke also a very particular attitude in regards to the meditation, how you will never find a meditation for something. This is not something that we're going to find in any of the books of Prabhuji or in any of his lectures. So I think it's very important to go to that class if you didn't see it, to understand and to have the right attitude and intention when we are sharing in regards to these different techniques. We're going to have, before starting the third section, a class where we're going to even deepen more in regards to the sadhana and the practice, but I wanted to make this small parenthesis to mention it now. So we have different postures that are recommended in order to connect, to balance with this center, different asanas. The first one is the crow posture, which is Kakasana, and I'm going to show different images so you see the posture. Then we have the peacock posture, which is Mayurasana. And the last one that is shared in the book is the pincers posture, which is Paschimottanasana. In different books, as we shared previously, you're going to find many other postures. We're sharing the ones in the book. For example, I remember seeing, because this center is related to the water, is related to movement, then they're going to recommend the sun salutation, the Surya Namaskar, as this series of postures, this vinyasa, that you're doing different postures in certain flow, in certain rhythm. It's going to help to connect to this center that is related to the element of the water. But as I mentioned, we're sharing the ones that we find in the book, which are the 3 that we just saw. And then in the section of the sadhana, we have the technique, the practice to open this chakra. And in this one, Prabhuji is sharing that you need to sit in Siddhasana, in a meditative posture with the back straight. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're going to bring your attention to the second center, which is in the base of the genitals. As you inhale, you feel how the air is touching that area and is hitting the area of the second center. And as you exhale, you feel how the air is going out of the body through the Svadhisthana chakra. While you're inhaling, you're going to start repeating the mantra of this center, which is VAM, mentally, and also in the exhalation, you repeat the mantra VAM, VAM. So it's recommended to do this practice daily for 20 minutes. So this is the technique, the practice in order to open this center. This is everything for today. We are going to have in our next class the beginning of the third center, the Manipura chakra. And we're going to continue deepening in regards to all the other chakras in the different series of classes that we're having. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jai Prabhuji.